Okay, it's that awkward time of day where there's direct sunlight hitting this region. Look, it looks like it's pretty cool, right? It looks like in the 80s, like the movies in the 80s where somebody's on the way to heaven like they just died. All right, guys, Tiger King 2. So for those of you who didn't watch the first season on Netflix, Tiger King, Netflix phenomenon. The second season just came out, so I want to talk about it. But basically, if you live under a rock, Tiger King is about the big cat community in the United States. That's what they call themselves, big cat lovers. What that really means is like tigers and lions. These are people who literally own exotic animals, tigers and lions, and operate their own private zoos for profit. Very lucrative business, apparently. But it's this like crazy eccentric community of people who have all these like political sort of it's like a chess game. Like they're trying to take each other down, they're trying to make more money than this person, and then it becomes even more serious and nefarious. It's like murder for hire plots and like crazy shit. The reason I want to talk about this on this channel is that the second season starts with sort of everything that's happened since the first season aired on Netflix. All these people became famous as a result of the show, but one person in particular, Joe Exotic, has received so much more fandom and also like support than the other people in the show. And what you see is that Joe Exotic, who is the openly gay, former private zoo operator who's now in prison, he is like adored by everybody. What's interesting is all these people are crooks. Like all these people look bad, but out of all the people who look bad, he is somehow like the heart of the story, I would say. Like he's the most likable one. And people, I guess like fans of the show have really connected with him. And the first episode of the second season is all about like all these people trying to get a political pardon from Donald Trump at the time of his presidency, to get Joe Exotic out of jail. And what's fascinating to me is a lot of these people trying to get Joe Exotic out of jail are people who you would never think would be like this supportive of trying to get an openly gay man out of jail. Like we're talking like people who otherwise, it's kind of implied that otherwise they're pretty like conservative, traditional Southern people, but they have this connection to Joe Exotic and this loyalty to him. And this points to one of the neat things about this whole show, this like phenomenon, which is that you have people who are such walking stereotypes, in this case like the Southern like redneck stereotype, but in other ways they're completely contradicting that stereotype. So of course Joe Exotic is an example of this, right? He's like flamboyantly gay, but he's also very much like a Southern redneck, like Oklahoma living guy with his guns, and then all these people supporting him in the first episode of the second season. Same thing, like they're just not people who I would ever associate with an openly gay person. And so for me watching this, it's like making me reconsider like what preconceived notions I have about people, if I find it so hard to believe that people who look like this, who act like this, who come from these backgrounds would support somebody like Joe Exotic. Meanwhile, there's been pretty widespread criticism of Carole Baskin, and I can't help but feel as a viewer, because to me, again, they all are crooks, like they all look bad, but just the disdain that people have for her makes me think that, I guess, misogyny at the end of the day is always going to be stronger than homophobia. And maybe I'm overthinking it and it's not really about these like identity politics, and maybe it really is just people like him because they relate to him. He's the guy who had a difficult childhood, who isn't some uppity like upper class guy. Like he at one point seems to have been wealthy, but he has this like blue collar, relatable everyday Joe aesthetic. And so I think regardless of his sexuality, I guess people who are otherwise conservative look at him and feel like a brotherhood or a connection to him. I'm curious if any of you guys have been watching season 2 of Tiger King, and if you had similar thoughts or interpreted all of this kind of differently.